Good evening, Mr. Joe. How are you doing? Welcome to the 114th developer update. This might be the third time, second time, something like we're doing it live with Joseph Armeanio. How you doing, sir?
A happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody out there that celebrates.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It is May 5th.
Yeah.
Good
How are
point.
you doing today, QX?
Well, I've got COVID, but we're still kind of cranking it through here, sir. Still trying to recover, but when I sat down here, somebody reminded me that it was May 5th, so we had to pour a little bit of the clear stuff.
Yeah.
Happy May
That's
5th, Joe.
it's one of the good holidays, man. The ones with food.
Oh, did you eat today?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, lucky you. Lucky you. Let me post this live link to chat now that I have it. There we go. Let's see. I don't expect, we're a little what's it called? A little earlier than last time we did this. And I appreciate that, Joe. But let's see if we get the same amount of viewers. Last time we were expecting none, and we got like 25. This time, maybe if we expect 25, we'll get 2. So that's perfect. Oh gosh. All right, so Joe, what's new? You see that we've been posting quite a bit from the main channels and some infographics about Ergo as a smart layer for
Yeah.
Bitcoin. And one of my concerns with, at least with what's out there now and what's being headed towards, is that Bitcoin is being provided with these smart layer 2 chains or these kind of things, but they're based on EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine. So it's essentially like, I think I said during the AMA, taking from a bank vault instead of using one of those big, like Diebold bank cars that are carrying your money from one place to another. They're using like a Kia Sportage or something, or one of the little plastic Fisher Price cars kind of thing. That's a simple
Well,
take on it, but it's
it's one of the things. It's one of the things that Ethereum did right. Right. If you look across, like, okay, so you have multiple L2s that are EVM based. How many of them are really unique versus, more or less the same thing? And I don't understand really why you wouldn't just, bridge to ETH anyway. But okay. So what was your question? I got dragged.
you got way off the highway there, buddy.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Sorry.
should have waited another hour. My question is, what are some ways that Ergo is poised to provide those kind of financial toolings, and along with Rosen Bridge as well, side chains combined for the Bitcoin people who are kind of limited right now by the juggernaut that it is, and the lack of that kind of tooling over there.
Right, it's interesting. Right now, the Bitcoin community itself somewhat split as usual. Huh. In terms of like building on top of Bitcoin, everything that's, kind of like an L2 sidechain is basically multi-sig based, right? And Rosen, in my opinion, has better assumptions than a multi-sig because you get this notion of pre-truth, right? The watchers are watching, they come to consensus about what should happen, it settles, versus, in a straight multi-sig, people sign and, they reach some consensus threshold and things execute. So part of the initial design of Rosen was to try to improve like the visibility and assumptions around multi-sig, just as a broad solution. So I think we're actually positioned well there, in terms of like superior security, especially as our guard layer expands. Then you get into Ergo itself, and you can say, okay, well, you don't have a virtual machine, right? It's kind of interesting that here you have this like I guess Ergo script can kind of be seen as like a series of microservices, right? That are on chain, that are each uniquely programmed in terms of their inputs, outputs. There's no broad VM.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to look at how, the VM mentality is kind of slowly seeping into, Bitcoin in terms of programmability. So that's unique. But, you can say, okay, well, in terms of the split, within like the Bitcoin community itself, a lot of that has to do with this notion of, I don't know, let's call it more or less potential spam, right? You have like Donald Trump coin that's now, minted on Bitcoin, and it's like, okay,
Hmm.
well, what's the life cycle of that, right? And actually, I do agree with some of the more conservative people on that side of the network, where it's like once you put this on chain, there's an assumption you have to carry it forever, right? Unless you're Ergo and you thought about demurrage and state management and all of that good stuff. But with a lot of these systems, actually having the user, like the peer in the network, carry the entire state is just absurd. And some of the chains and their size, and it's like, well, what would happen in theory if we see increased regulation on like the wallet side and nobody can carry, are people going to really go out there and buy 20 terabytes of
Hmm.
hardware to be able to carry the state of the chain? That doesn't seem realistic. So I think that in a way, a lot of the drama that's in the space highlights some of the design decisions that we made. VMless, having ultralight clients. I think there's certainly a lot of people in the Bitcoin community that still kind of, I don't know, see these as peer-to-peer networks where it's like, hey, if you're gonna contribute, run a node, right? Even that is exotic in a lot of networks. You never hear that anymore. Like, be a peer in a peer-to-peer network, otherwise you're just a user, right? um, and so I think that a lot of the things that we've built and we try to talk about on the Ergo side, people would appreciate. Now there is some truth that we've been specking out. Okay, so you have these runes, ordinals, kind of exotic,
Yeah, yeah.
hacky things on top of Bitcoin. So how do we index them on chain, and how do we bridge them? And actually, we've kind of come up with a roadmap in terms of how to do that in a way that we think makes sense. So
Can you talk about
it's
that? Can you talk about that right now? Because I'm interested to know what you guys are thinking there. Like, how do you
what we're
bring?
thinking. Well, it's a dumb chain, right? Like that's the first place we got to start. That Bitcoin itself, you can't really store much data other than what you execute on Bitcoin, right? And that's actually an interesting thing. So you have the potential to create multiple output, and so in theory, you could send a self output and encode data or use that secondary output as a means to encode data on the blockchain itself. And it would kind of be a pointer to a database that then the bridge could scan for and watch, and potentially have that ability to store some sort of data on Bitcoin through using extra outputs that are like send to self output, right? So they would go back to the user. um, and then it's a question of, okay, well, could we then scan for that and record it perhaps on the Ergo blockchain, right? And we have the ability to store data, so as soon as that output happens, watchers could watch for that and print a block on Ergo that creates a reference point in time between the two chains, and then we've kind of created this ability to index on a dumb chain. So it's a thought.
How, is that
It's
is that is that a ton of data though to keep track of? I mean, how busy is that going to make the chain? And then
well, I mean,
stuff the block full of stuff, keeping track of all the runes and things built on Bitcoin.
they'd pay for it. I mean, that's the thing you have to remember, is that these are databases with limited um, space, right? So if you want space, you pay for it. That's, Bitcoin people will understand that because it seems like that's just inherent to the majority anyway of these systems.
And is this something
No,
you could?
it is possible that maybe we could store it on IFPS or some other data layer. That doesn't really matter, right? Um, but having the ability to reference a second output and then store it somewhere is the general idea.
Can you store it on side chains at all?
Yeah, in theory you could. I mean, in theory you could. We would need one first, though, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's doable anyway. It's a bit to manage. It's a little inefficient, but it's building on a dumb chain is inefficient. It's more or less, kind of a hacky way to do it, but why not, right? If there's demand and people want to pay for it,
So
let them pay the water.
do you see Ergo not only supporting things like Bitcoin, but also eventually providing these kind of things to, proof of stake chains that can't get the same kind of, security and finality, at least, that Ergo enjoys?
Let's see. It's hard to say. I don't really like giving statements. I mean, it's just true. You'd have to look at the particular thing. Like, you get some complexity, like where you don't really have data standards, right? And then it's like, okay, well, so then we kind of have to create some sort of universal data standard that would work across multiple environments, or just simply just have like the watcher and guard set handle that internally. Where there's some complexities there we have to kind of. So
Joe,
it's
is when the Bitcoin bridge comes up, am I under the
Mhm.
correct understanding that there's not going to be Rose and Erg you can't inscribe Rose and Erg into some sort of token on Bitcoin with runes or
Well,
something like that? How's that going to work?
Could we? There's potential there.
But the initial offering
No,
is
I
going to
don't.
be
I don't. I
Bitcoin
don't.
coming over
I
to
don't think
Ergo.
we'll start there. But if there was enough demand, in a way, like Bitcoin has to make their own choice, right? I'm not a Bitcoin miner anymore. So what do I care? Let them decide. What they're gonna do with these kind of exotic things. It's kind of created some pressure to upgrade the system a little bit, which is always a shit show. And then you also have this question of like, I guess losing some of their privacy tools this last week is kind of a kick in the teeth. So then it's like, there's some people in that sphere that are like, hey, maybe we should upgrade to support some privacy features, which again, any change on Bitcoin is always going to be a shit show. So I don't know if it makes 100%, like the logic is there to push that initially, because it may or may not last. I would assume it'll last because, well, it pays miners, right? But it's something we could in theory do. Now, from what I've seen, and I'm not really an expert, it looks like so far the ability to buy and sell these things is a little rough, right? In terms of the exchanging, runes, etc. I think some of them have been listed on central exchanges, but in terms of like on-chain marketplaces, etc., it's a little rough. So let's see how it evolves. Anyway.
Well, how do we get past? I mean, it's what I feel with Bitcoin, at least from my outside stance looking in, is that the diehard Bitcoin people are convinced and pushing obviously hard because they're developing things like ordinals and runes to try to push this into the current technology that Bitcoin is. And at what point do you think that perhaps they will think that hey, Bitcoin is this amazing store of value that's not going away, digital gold, perhaps we
Well,
should.
that's the thing, isn't it? Like you have
Yeah,
narratives
yeah.
in crypto. No, I mean, just call it what it is. It's narratives. And so it's kind of slowly, it goes through phases, right? Where it's like more or less the community rebrands it as something else. It's digital gold, it's a store of value, it's, state resistant money, et cetera, et cetera. It's a meme in a way, but I guess life is, right?
Yep, I guess the question is how do you gently onboard those types? Because I mean,
Well,
it's going to be an
listen,
easy.
I think at the end of the day, for a certain subset, right? Um,
You don't think we're going to
those that,
cap? You don't think we're going to be able to capture those types?
no, I think there's a certain subset that'll just, hold on, right? Okay, that's fine. And I don't mind. I think there will be some that already are interested in, um, let's call it DeFi tooling. There's wrapped Bitcoin in multiple networks, right? And then it becomes a competition of, yield and incentive. So that's ultimately what, networks would need to look at if you're trying to say, okay, well, we want to attract liquidity into this environment from, another different environment. You can use security as a kind of draw, get them through the door. But I think at the end of the day, yield tends to matter. And the question is, where does your yield come from? Like there was a ton of people in the Bitcoin community that got screwed by a lot of these CFI, which is
What's
funny.
that? What's CFI?
Centralized financial
Oh, gotcha.
services,
Okay.
where they said, hey, give us your Bitcoin and we'll give you a yield, right? And then that kind of brings up the age old question, where's the yield come from? And if you don't know that, you might be the yield, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So at least we have, open source contracts in our DeFi ecosystem, and to where there's a lot to build on there in terms of just trust, right? It is true that, when you get away from kind of the VM environment, you can avoid some complexities that come with that, compiler errors, etc. So I would hope that, you know, some Bitcoiners out there would appreciate security and look at what Ergo's done. And, a lot of the drama that they have, let's give examples like, spam on chain and state space. We have Demirage, storage rent solves it. People can spam the chain, and if things aren't economically efficient enough, and in time they'll just be recycled.
Yeah, it's funny. There was a small discussion on what is that, on X the other day that I joined in. I hardly ever join in those discussions on X because this is a shit show. There's no point sometimes. But there was a user that had commented on and said something specifically about storage rent, and that um, they were convinced that the Ergo devs. The Ergo devs, the puppeteers, all those baddies,
Yeah,
could just reach in there and utilize storage rent to drain people's wallets. And it's I understand storage rent's a hard thing to understand, but that's it's a shame. I tried to correct them and nobody responded to me. At least they didn't. So,
that's all right,
but
man. There's a
yeah,
lot of
it's
tinfoil hat
yeah,
shit
I
on
know
X.
it's tough. I mean,
Goes open source.
yeah, just to make it clear for the people watching and watching later, I believe it's what, a 90% super consensus for any kind of hard fork like that to be able to completely modify the chain. I mean, essentially, you
Yeah,
just
yeah, we don't have the
yeah.
ability. Miners have to do it,
Yeah.
and it's actually kind of interesting in a way if you implement Demirage. Um, man, it's more or less like a lease agreement. Like it's true you have custody of your asset, but over a long enough time frame, everything goes back to the miners. It's a miner network, right? And that kind of is interesting anyway. Um, like not only does proof of work itself not have a notion of absolute finality, it's always probabilistic, but the actual asset that you're sending around, has no notion of like pure like custody over the arc of time. It'll either move or get digested back into the network over a long enough time frame. That's not something that people need to worry about, for to a large degree in terms of the time horizons most people are around. But theoretically anyway, if I were to, croak tonight, eventually all my erg is going to get recycled back into the network, and not only, contribute to like the long-term security of the system itself, but
By paying
you know,
miners. Yep.
yeah, it's almost like some long-term lease agreement in a way versus absolute like custody, which is interesting because when you look at this idea of like lost coins as an example on Bitcoin, that's interesting. Like they celebrate it, like yay, there's less Bitcoin in circulation. But then whenever you're talking about UTXO, you also have this dust vector, right? Where things will, at some point they'll get kind of small enough that they're no longer economically efficient. And what do you do with all that dust? You just carry it on chain forever. So not only do we kind of manage the state itself, we create some unique assumptions in terms of holding the asset and interacting with the network. It's not free. This is not cloud computing, right? You got to pay miners to store data, and
Yeah,
that's ultimately a good thing.
yeah, I think it boils down to the mindset that people enter when they come into crypto. And currently, crypto's thought of as by a lot of people as a speculative asset. So they come
Mhm.
in, they think, okay, I'm going to dump these tokens in my wallet and then cash them out at some point. And in Ergo, at least, we know we're educated about storage rent. And a lot of us in the ecosystem, you know, it's funny, use our wallets so much that I never even have to think about it. So like the other week I popped into my main wallet that I use for like not even my tipper wallet, just the main wallet that I use to transfer things between. And I was like, oh shit, I should check my boxes. And I was like, I'm sure I
Mhm.
got a ton of boxes. And I look and I'm one UTXO. So, if you're utilizing the network and you're actually participating in it, in the ecosystem, there's nothing you have to worry about there. So I think these people come in, they're like, oh God, so I'm gonna have to remember every 4 years to check my wallet. And in the future,
No,
you're gonna be using the blockchain. You're gonna be lending.
I
You're
would
gonna
hope.
be interacting.
Yeah, I would hope that people use cryptocurrency as currency. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
so ultimately, in terms of, I don't know, growing network effect, that's one thing Bitcoin did really well. Is getting let's say some aspect where it can be used as a currency itself. Not that we see that too often, but um, I do think that in terms of like commercial adoption, you're much more likely to go buy things with Bitcoin, and that's done good things for their network.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around long enough to where there's some level of trust in the fact that it's not gonna, people can at least speculate that it's not gonna go to zero anytime in the immediate future. So they feel comfortable
Mhm.
with allowing that kind of thing. But yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hope someday that soon, actually, people will come in and instead of buying and leaving it in the wallet and not even checking Ergo and coming back
Mhm.
in years and being like, I can't get into Yo Roy anymore. And you're like, Yo Roy was offline like 2 years ago, guys. Where you been? Kind of thing. That they
Yeah.
at least
I think there's also a big use case there for building crypto backed derivatives, basically. Because some people, I don't know,
make it.
I've said
Yeah.
it I've said it before, but like there's a ton of people in this world that what they want to happen is their money is worth the same when they get to the cashier versus when they started in line, right? They don't want volatility, they want
Mhm.
stability. And that's probably why we've seen USDT so broadly adopted, is because it's true. You go to South America, you go to Africa, people want dollars because they have the notion that, oh, it's stable. You look at somewhere like Argentina where it's been rough, and Lebanon, a lot of places when you get inflation. We've had some here, but and Americans love to bitch about it, but we're still in rookie leagues
Yeah.
relative to some countries.
Yep.
Um, we're playing t-ball still, relative to some people out there, but I think stability is a huge use case. And then it's like, okay, well, if you can create this notion of stability, I think you're much more likely to see adoption in commerce.
No, right. If you go to a country that has, double percentages of inflation every year, and you can say to those people, hey, you can put your funds on chain and in a stable environment and something not as volatile, and you'll actually earn against your own currency. You know, you'll
Mhm.
bypass that inflation there coming back out when you use it. It, I think it's only a matter of adoption. That's it. I mean, once this stuff gets adopted, it's going to be absolutely
No,
like,
I like the idea of using gold, to be honest, rather than straight like fiat peg. Just because it's hairy. You get into this notion like, oh, you know there's like regulatory vectors there you got to pay attention to potentially.
well, you're going to the
Or-
source, Joe. There, you're going to the source, right? Because the dollar's, at least it was a representation of gold reserves. So
Mhm.
why just go around the middleman right there and peg right to gold?
Well,
Yeah.
it's an interesting concept. Like, okay, in the short term, gold's interesting, and then it's like, okay, well, if you can create frameworks that are resilient, what if you can create, like stable baskets to where you perhaps get some agricultural commodities and some, energy-based commodities, some exotic metals, spin something up that represents some sort of way to offset overall volatility. You know, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's a big thought, but I do think that not only is it potentially more resilient than something like a fiat currency itself, you just sidestepped a huge regulatory attack vector. But I don't know. We'll see. Dexy's on its way. I do hope that one day, somebody will have the bright idea that if you have these gold stable coins, you might be able to you know charge some something on both ends and actually settle physically. That'd be cool.
All right. So
Let's see.
how do we combat these? Or not? How do we combat? Or how do we rise up among the noise of these other projects who, at face value, claim things that they aren't? I
Like
guess
what?
like Solana, decentralized. They're kind
No,
of
it's
trying to own that term, and we had talks in the SIG meetings that maybe we shouldn't use decentralized as a term anymore because it's being hijacked by somebody who's not even close to
just
decentralized.
call it
Peer to
what it is.
peer-to-peer
It's a
networks, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, it's a peer-to-peer network. Um, that is the underlying base, right? So maybe that would be more peer-to-peer is it's refined, right? That's a concise term. That's specific. Peer-to-peer versus you get into decentralized and then it's a spectrum,
Yeah.
and depending on how far people are on the spectrum, it might not fit, but
It's like
I don't know.
we're decentralized. There's five whole people on my node, five whole people on my team running a node by themselves in this company. It's like,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I think peer-to-peer is, it's concise. That's my personal opinion. Decentralized is more or less like it's a buzzword. Like there's no finality in the term. It's loose. It's abstract basically. Versus if you look at it peer to peer, it's like, why do we build with open source code? So you can be a peer, right? So you can host the application yourself. You're a peer. If you're not a peer, you're a user, and if you're a user, you might get used. And if you get used, sorry, you should have had better assumptions in terms of being a peer. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. So that's always going to be the case, man. You see some crazy stuff in crypto, always. I saw one chain where it's like our block time is faster than I can ping most places, right?
That's Solana hitting you with that stuff. Yeah, I've heard that. Our blockchain is as close to the speed of light as we can make it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and then
It's
and
like,
then there's no question. Okay, well, where do you put all the data,
mm,
right? Because ultimately these are information consensus systems. Um, so where do you put all the data? And then you get some crazy state size that there's very few that actually have the entire chain. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we could spin up a side
Good
chain for
marketing.
we could spin up a side chain for those companies and store all their stuff compressed on our chain.
It is what it is, man. Throw a hat on it and people buy that shit.
Or a bat, yeah. Dog, cat with bat and hat. Shit. Oh, it looks like
It's
people
crypto, baby.
are AMA in this thing. All right, let's see.
Oh, what are they saying?
Let's see. They said, well, JC said Armenio is looking hot. What's going on?
What?
Yeah. JC's looking for a date, Joe.
Well, good luck.
He also says, can the Sigma Nuts make a fund to donate towards the Subblocks Funding development? Joe, why don't you talk briefly real quick about how you're planning to fund Subblock development and how to pay the miners on Subblocks, and also like the development DAO that Kushti's running.
No, so we've put together a development DAO, and Alex and I've kind of been talking about this for more or less a while. It's like, okay, we built this network. Everything's open source end to end, right? Which is unique. Ergo has a lot of unique functions. Okay. We also have proof of work as a base, and we've had this great community that spun up a variety of open source applications that are end to end open source, right? You won't really find that in most ecosystems in crypto. What you'll find is people with they started a project, they have a token, they have closed repositories, and they kind of try to own their own little space, right? Versus having all of these tools that are end-to-end open source, that creates more or less a software suite, right? The most powerful thing about open source code is that it's portable. And that's important if you look at it something like a peer-to-peer network, because you want software to be portable across your peer set. Okay. Now, proof of work itself is built on this notion that every coin is purchased by hash rate. That's important to understand. Every coin is purchased by hash rate. Okay. If you look at proof of stake, what creates the ability to capture inflation? You own something and you do something with it, right? And you usually get, you get some governance rights, and you get some notion of capturing inflation. Versus in proof of work, it's about energy input and purchasing coins with hash rate. So if we take hash rate as more or less a neutral concept, okay, and we say, okay, we have this suite that we've built, and miners need to mine, right? That's like fundamentally important. If anybody out there is a miner and you have invested in your equipment, or you're serious enough that you have your own operation, you need to cover costs. You need to mine. And so some people will actually get to the point where they're mining at a loss. I'm sure a lot of Bitcoin miners are right now due to the halving. And they're going to try to more or less speculate with what they create to try to then, cover costs in the future. Hopefully people are covering costs. So it's like, okay, well, why don't we simply, come from the principle that proof of work itself is about capturing computational power, right? And we have a bunch of hardware out there in this world, whether it's CPU, GPU, ASIC, FBGA, that we have the ability to spin up networks that are proof of work based, that can support Sigma, and we have the ability with Sigma itself to kind of create this constellation of value that's continually being purchased by hash rate. So gives miners alternatives, potentially, if we can build on whatever hardware or they have, right? And it creates a really unique notion of decentralized money, right, built on proof of work, because the applications become portable across peers. But you can have peer networks that are supported by multiple energy inputs, right? It doesn't really matter if it's CPU, GPU, ASIC. In one sense, it's these are hash rate coins, right? People are buying them with hash rate. And then you can create some really unique features and functionalities where you kind of more or less look at what I said earlier about EVM, where you have, pancake swap, uniswap, sushi swap, this swap, that swap, and they're all built on the same open source base, right?
Hmm.
So if we can create a constellation of proof of work chains, it support miners, more or less globally, and it would create a new standard that potentially would attract development mind share. And if we create a lot of similar upstream dependencies on the contract layer, um, it would give us much more robust development community over time. And I would love to see that to where, um, I don't know, I think that Kushti's dream is to decentralize himself, more or less, where, we you kind of create enough, energy input and mind share where, um, we can draw in a lot of people, and then he can build whatever he wants, right? So go to focus on chain cash and what you want to do there. Go focus on working with, nonprofits and creating, local financial systems and all the stuff that he actually has passion about, right? So yeah, that's kind of the long-term goal that I would like to work towards anyway, because I see a lot of value in that in terms of how this magic internet money is created. That matters. Um, you know, it, that's a part of why you do have a lot of kind of old bones in the space that at some point wanted to kind of create a disruptive force, right? Like if we can use energy as the input in computation, can we create this neutral global money, right? And could that potentially become something that I don't know is a counterforce for increasing levels of oversight and control and surveillance and all the fun stuff that
So yeah.
no,
Oh,
you can go.
well, I was gonna say, what do you think? What do you think the path forward is for that? As far as, I mean, there's always going to be resistance from state entities, right? Right?
Yeah, of
They're
course.
scared of losing power. So
No,
you,
but we've seen this. We've seen this. It's not a new problem.
no,
Okay.
no, no, no. But what do you feel? Do you feel eventually these guys are going to either wait for chains like Ergo or chains the big VC chains to join them, or eventually try to reach their feelers in and take control from that way? Like,
Are
what's
you talking like Armenio tinfoil hat conspiracy theory time or what?
yeah, yeah. Put on your
That's
tinfoil hats
what?
there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hit it.
Oh. Well, I think at some point the crypto industry as a whole will have a split. Okay. And you'll have on one side like compliance finance. Okay. To where it's jurisdictional based and they're always trying to, fit within whatever the ever changing legal and regulatory landscape is. Right. And then you'll always have some sort of friction between like the newest proposal and then kind of like the legal kickback and then some friction and then I don't know, it's generally a ratchet effect is what I see, where it only really moves one direction. It's just every once in a while the ratchet moves backwards and everyone's like, oh, we have a
Yeah,
chance,
yeah.
right? And then I think you're going to have networks that are resilient, right? And they may suffer in one jurisdiction, but when they do, it creates like a type of regulatory arbitrage in another where it's profitable.
Hmm.
And we've seen this with Bitcoin. Like one of the coolest things about Bitcoin in terms of its history is how it has been able to use regulatory arbitrage to survive. Where people will go to different countries because they have more favorable legislation because it's profitable for them to support that, and that profit incentive is crazy hard to kill. That's why the war on drugs loses, right? It's because the profit incentive is hard to kill.
Hmm.
So if there's a profit incentive there, I have this assumption that you know, people will see that and take advantage of it, right? And then you have a certain sustainability, even if, you know, Bitcoin is banned in China again, or banned in this jurisdiction again, or you know, that happens. It's interesting to look at like the past as some sort of indicator for the future, right? You know, in the worst case, if we can build a really nice open source suite, that itself, because it's portable, that's super survivable. You know, to where, who knows, maybe as an industry, you know, and at some point we do, you know, more or less fail, right? But if we build, you know, some really interesting open source tools, maybe they survive beyond the crypto industry itself and help people. So, like in the worst case, yeah, we tried. The best case, it's adopted, and somewhere in the middle, it becomes some sort of like counter economic system.
That wasn't too tinfoil hat. That was normal hat, Joe. Let me see what some other people said. Hang on. We've got just regular things says Ergo needs to get on Coinbase. Yep.
Oh.
Let's see. Oh,
I heard
JC.
Coinbase got sued again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some
But-
lawsuit out of California, selling unregistered securities, all that good stuff.
Oh boy. Let's see. JC says, yeah, I guess we were talking about Ergo yield or Solana yield and other things, or Bitcoin yield back in the days. And JC says, yeah, where's my Ergo yield at? Does JC not know all the opportunities he can receive Ergo yield?
Well, it's one of the funny things in a way. Proof of work coins. Because every coin itself is purchased with hash rate, right? There's no free lunch.
No.
There's no free lunch, right? There's a lot of systems out there where you can armchair money, quote unquote, where, you know, if you put it somewhere, and there's, you know, no notion of risk attached to it, you have this idea of free rewards, right? And you get into this idea of seniorage, right? And this is important because we're talking about cryptocurrency, currency itself, money, right? There's a cost difference between the ability to produce money and what it's worth, right? So like you as a user, you get out a $1 bill, a $5 bill, a $10 bill, and a $100 bill, right? Same paper. Maybe there's some ink difference that's minute, right? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual cost of production of money and then the purchasing power of that money is somewhat distorted based on the number that's printed on the bill itself, right? And that gap itself is called seniorage. That's why fiat fails every time, is because eventually, you know, it trends towards the price of production. So historically, the success rate of fiat currency is 0. You know, it's interesting to think, okay, well, now that we have more of these digital dollars, like, is it obfuscated enough from the user that they don't necessarily recognize inflation? Where, you know, if the house, the price of something doubled, right? My house. And if it's like, okay, well, if it's, you know, 100,000 versus 200,000, which it's not, but simple analogy. You know, as a user, if you're carrying physical money, you're going to really realize something's happening. My money's not buying as much versus when it's just, you know, a number that, you know, you swipe your card, you don't necessarily pay as much attention to. You don't have to physically like experience that reality. Does it create a disconnect? I think so.
I agree. Huge difference in just paying with cash than paying with plastic. 100%.
Yeah, but you know, that's the thing. Everyone wants free yield. You have to look at, does your yield come from seniorage, right? Or does it come from some sort of service or risk? And if it just comes from seniorage, that's dangerous because the cost of production and the purchasing power tend to trend towards each other over time. If it's based on risk, okay, well, what is the risk? Is it quantifiable? Is it something you can actually audit the risk and understand and know your assumptions around the risk? Or is it, you know, one of these CeFi things where they took users' money and then they lent it out, and then they were arbitraging the difference where it's like I can lend it out for 7%, I can pay QX 5%,
Yep.
and it works, and I skim 2% and I'm profitable. And then it didn't work, and QX was the yield.
Yep.
It is what it is.
It is. All right, let's see what else we got here. We have oh yeah, Gordon jokes that we should put our nodes on AWS, right? Like everybody else. I was helping somebody with who was it? Canon spun up Satergo, and he was like, "Hey, how do I connect to Satergo to send transactions out?" So I ran him through it really quickly, and he entered the node into his Nautilus, into his Ergo mobile wallet, and sent out a transaction. And I sat back for a second. I was like, "Holy shit, this is really cool." He's literally running his own node. He's
a peer. He's his own peer.
Exactly. He's broadcasting a transaction through that node out to the network.
People don't recognize the power of being a peer. They really don't.
Absolutely amazing.
Well, it's the industry has gotten so absurd that there are people out here that are like, oh yeah, I have crypto, and it's on an exchange that they're not a peer. Like on in one sense, if you look at these networks, you're either a peer or you're not, right? And if you're not, you're coming in through someone else's infrastructure. So then there's a certain level of trust that you're, essentially granting to someone else, and you're hoping that they don't abuse you as a user, whether it's, scrape your IP or, I mean, it's crazy to me to think about, like,
let's not get into that, Joe. That's crazy what that's becoming, right? With the amount of data that's starting to be collected about crypto users and the wallets and the sites they visit and the dApps that they use and what they buy and what they do. That is like the next big money collection. Yeah.
That's its own monster. People don't even realize that Web3 is becoming exactly the same
fucking
as Web2
coming for you. Yep.
In terms of data scraping and data harvesting. And think about it just in a very basic sense. Okay, you have a bearer asset. What that means is that if you hold the keys to something, it's yours, right? So that's more or less, it's like money in your pocket. Who's to say that there's not even something as simple as like you run some infrastructure, you scrape some IPs, you go wrench attack them, and there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like that's dangerous in a way. That I would say that people don't really recognize the assumptions that they're taking on just in that. Broadcasting, just their IP address is potentially dangerous. But it is what it is. The industry itself, I just say it's Crypto Baby. Somebody asked me about a project today. I'm like, cool. Does it have a hat?
Did it?
No. No, they were actually building something, but
oh boy, I love it. Wrench attack. That's my favorite kind of attack.
Yeah, I'm just honest. Why would you want anyone to have your IP address to know that you have bearer assets in your own custody? Like that's silly.
Yeah, my one advantage is that I barely know where any of my assets are on chain. They're in some loan or some wallet somewhere. It's hard to keep track of that kind of stuff. So, I guess.
And that's one of the real cool things I like about Nebo Palace in terms of light infrastructure, is you get actual direct peer-to-peer layer interaction. You get a notion of full node security versus being a user. And that's something that long term I hope we really see pushed, especially as stronger regulation potentially comes out about wallets and this kind of thing. Because if you're just holding a light wallet, you're using someone else, and that someone else may be a large company that's scraping your data anyway. And I don't think people really understand the attack vector there, because that's not what this industry talks about anymore.
I wonder if there's ever has there ever been a talk, Joe, about Making the node wall a little more robust and having kind of its own separate, better looking tab, so that people.
I've in my own head. Okay, this is not something you can take to the bank. This is Armenio's truth, right? But in these type of systems, I've always thought, okay, well, we should have some sort of robust, let's call it a heavy node, right? Where potentially you have a node and you have, maybe even an explorer or some, as heavier tools, right? That a developer might be interested in having locally. Then you kind of have like the historical node that potentially has the ability to run some bots off of it and interact in the ecosystem. And then you kind of have like the NepoPal ultralight client end user that it's probably buried and they don't even really know that they're talking to the P2P network, but it's happening, right? And so generally, I think that if you're looking at like infrastructure from a peer-to-peer open source perspective, we should probably consider all three as like three tiers of peers, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But yeah, we haven't got there yet, but it's early. Anyway.
All right, let's see what else we have here. Gordon's saying that he doesn't believe his FPGAs are compatible with Ergo. You want to tell Gordon that he's wrong?
Sure. No. So I'll tell the story even. So there's a hardware developer out there that builds these type of algorithms in Verilog. Wolf. I wouldn't recommend you look him up because the screenshots are a little.
Yeah. Be careful. Right, well, he censors them. He censors all the juicy parts. He's
a good character.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I respect Wolf anyway, but so there was an FBGA build that was in development, and there could be other private ones too, but this one was more public. The mega hash per watts was about 3.1, which is not crazy, right? Sometimes when you get into field programmable gate arrays, you get like 15, 20 times, 50 times the efficiency, and they just GPUs can't compete, right? With this, it is more efficient than right now. I think the Intel GPUs are one of the more efficient anyway, and I think they're close to 2.0 mega hash per watt. This is 3.1. I look at it as within power rate, to where it's if you're having like a commercial power rate versus a residential power rate, you're probably already more efficient, if that makes sense. But I knew that was being built, and so I bought it, right? And what did I do with it? Well, I put it on a shelf, okay? And I spent way too much money for it. I actually am somebody that likes general purpose hardware, so it's like my way to try to say, okay, well, even if I can theoretically push GPUs down the chain, give them another year, another 2 years, another 5 years, whatever lifetime, it's worth it to me, right? Because then hopefully miner governance is more evolved and people can figure this shit out instead of being like, Armenio, the difficulty adjustment, I don't like it, fix it. It's like, I can't, I'm sorry, but I can at least hopefully delay things to where the miners are mature enough to where they can do that. And so I was sitting on a shelf for a long time. We have a developer in the community, MGPie. I just gave it to him, right? I support open source code anyway. I spent way too much money on that, and I just gave it to him, right? It's probably the biggest.
Did you check eBay after the shipment arrived at his house, Joe?
No, I didn't. And I sent him the one card that I had, which was I think it was C1100 card that I kind of fiddled around with it a little bit, but I sent that to him, and so he's playing around with it. And we have this idea in Ergo of decentralizing mining pools, right, via Lithos. And I said, hey, is that something you can point towards Lithos to where when it's more mature, it'll attract hash rate? And that's ultimately what I'd like to see, because I support the concept of decentralizing mining pools. I've dealt with some of the centralized ones, and that's kind of hit or miss. That's its own spectrum of, let's say, people that more or less care or just don't, right? And so that's a concept I'd like to support. So I gave them the software and said, hey, play around with this, get it to production capacity. When Lethos comes online, point it towards Lethos, and if you want to charge some sort of fee and stick around in the Ergo ecosystem and build, do it. So we do have that capacity, but in terms of the efficiency rate, it's not dangerous. Like if QX is in the same jurisdiction as I am, and he has commercial power rates, and I have residential, he's more efficient than the difference between those and GPUs. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But GPU miners have been getting tanked on, where it's like, hey, we're gonna mine this, and then oops, never mind. It's now ASIC supported. We're gonna mine this.
Oh,
Oops,
right,
never mind. That's happened over and over and over again.
Or we're going to proof of stake.
No, God. There are three things in the Ergo like channels that I'm actually somewhat in charge of. Not that I'm a good babysitter anyway, but if you talk about scams, you post porn, or you talk about proof of stake, you're out.
Oh boy. Somebody quoted you in the Sigma Not DAO mining channel today. They said, there's been 2 or 3 people in our channel that have said, I feel like I'm getting more rewards in the Sig DAO mining pool than I was elsewhere. And I think that's probably due to the fact that we have, I don't know. I can't compare the calculations because I didn't mine much. I mined a while ago on what's it called, hero miners, and haven't shut it down for a little bit. And then I'm mining with 2 like 3090 and 3080 cards right now on the 6 mining pool. But they quoted you. You had said something like, you have no idea how to trust. You have no idea of the assumptions you're accepting when you mine
No,
to
it's
a
a
pool.
black box.
Yeah,
It's a black box. It's the exact same as an exchange, right? Where it's based on trust. We tried to do non-outsourceable puzzles that got broken. That was one of my favorite things about Ergo back in the day, was this notion that it was solo miners contributing, because it created like a natural effect where it was a network of peers, right? If you want to solo mine your peer, you got to run a full node. That got broken. So pools have their own efficiency. I understand that. But I was sad anyway. It is what it is. So if I can support Lethos going back towards that concept of decentralizing mining pools, I'm all about it.
agree.
And if I can support MG Pi and what he's doing, and supporting the ecosystem, I'm gonna do it. So I have no regrets other than the fact that I spent way too much and gave it away for free.
Let's see what else everybody has to say. Could you explain to someone non-technical how Ergo could utilize other proof of work algos for miners to earn additional erg? So I guess he's asking about side chains and different algos.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So if you look at where Ergo came from, it came from this tool that Alex built, or Kushti built back in the day. That was called ScoreX. And basically what ScoreX did is it created modular layers of blockchain ecosystem, because you have different components at the time, right? You have this underlying consensus algorithm that's creating blocks, right? And then you have a peer-to-peer network that's propagating blocks, and you have programmability potentially on whether it's a VM or more of like the Ergo's method of extended UTXO. And so you can almost look at these like Legos. Okay, so the base Lego in proof of work is this notion of an algorithm that's supported by a certain hardware class, where you get something like RandomX, where it's CPU based. You can look at like Autolicos, which is GPU based. You can look at ASIC like SHA-256, which Bitcoin runs, and you use different machines because they have different levels of efficiency. right? Because they were either designed to work with the CPU or designed to work with the memory of a GPU, or you had a specialty circuit designed to mine them in the case of like SHA-256 and Bitcoin, right? But all that really represents is this layer of actors globally that are running these computers, and they're submitting hash rate, and that hash rate itself buys coins, right? And the cool thing about, proof of work is that when you have this hardware distribution, um, it's very hard to kill, right? Because, even with pooled proof of work, you can say, oh, there's a couple of pools that are dominant. It's like, yeah, but those pools consist of, hundreds, potentially tens of thousands of individual miners that are submitting hash to that server, right? And you can attack that server, but you don't take away their hardware. They can just point it somewhere else,
Yep.
right? And if they just point it somewhere else, it becomes very hard to kind of kill that hardware security wall that's being built up around the ledger itself, right? So I like proof of work in that sense. So we have the ability from taking, let's say, Ergo tree or Sigma, which is, you could call it the computational layer, right? And we can plug that in on top of other um,
Sure.
algorithms that are
Using different
essentially,
color Legos. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's a different layer in the Lego set. And the cool thing is it becomes compatible, right? And if you look at one of the things, I've said this for a long time, and some people like to talk shit about Ethereum QX, but one of the things that they really did right, like I respect their development community. They created a ton of open source standards that are compatible across multiple environments, and that's made EVM very resilient, adopted, and it's become like the uh let's say the primary choice for any type of new chain or ecosystem because it's so easy to plug in. They
Yeah.
did that right. Like they did the open source side right. I don't necessarily think like EVM is perfect. Gas is a clusterfuck and running out sucks, and constantly getting diddled by Jared the subway bot is never fun, but like they did the open source side very well. I respect the hell out of that.
Where do you think it got lost?
Well, I don't necessarily think that the expressive nature of it was the best choice. That's it. But I can't say that there are not solid EVM frameworks, right? I can't say like EVM itself is unstable. It's just it's easy to have unforeseen attack vectors, whether it's like a compiler error or just stuff you wouldn't necessarily expect. And so we've seen, the initial DAO got hit with a reentrancy attack, and
Yeah.
probably the last reentrancy attack was today, right? Somewhere. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Do you think it was a huge mistake of them to move to proof of stake?
Me personally,
Yeah.
I think it was the dumbest. I think that was the dumbest design choice they ever did. I don't understand how you can. Okay, you can say that you had a couple of core developers in charge, and they forecasted that this is our roadmap. So therefore, if you're mining, you're supporting our roadmap. They rugged so many people, man. I have to say that when ETH was proof of work, they had a beautiful security wall, right? They had a really beautiful security wall around their ledger. They had this really interesting notion where mining was getting profitable enough to where you had people in third countries that were, earning income, right? I mean, that's food on people's plates,
Yep.
lights over their head, warmth in their house that they were getting from running GPUs. And, you just fucked all of them. And essentially now insiders get it. And if you look at proof of stake, it's kind of one of the shittier variations of proof of stake itself versus their GPU firewall was beautiful.
Yeah,
So
you said something.
I don't like it.
You said
But
something a while back, and it makes me think still to this day. I can't believe that so many more people were not so pissed off at this. That there was not some. I mean, I'm sure the miners are pissed, but I didn't hear them from where I was. That's for sure. All I heard was, "What coin do we mine next?" Not like, "Holy
yeah,
fuck, what are you doing to us?"
it created a weird incentive where like Ethereum, GPU proof of work was successful enough and it was adopted enough that people had an expectation of profitability, right? And historically, that's not the case with mining. That's just not the case. You look at, the Bitcoin halving that just happened, right? Profitability, got cut in half, right? And if you look at the price itself, it's more or less not doing so hot. I haven't really looked today, to be fully honest with you, but like mining itself is hard. It really is hard to be competitive and profitable. And
Yeah,
like they reached a point where mining itself was profitable, right? And that created all kinds of really unique things. I was talking to a guy, I can't even, he's from Venezuela, right? And that's kind of what he was doing. Was he was just mining, and he was paying his power guy to mask that, which I didn't give his name, so I didn't dox him. But anyway, like that's what people were starting to do, is they were starting to mine and pay the power guy and be like, hey, we can now create this asset, we can convert it to USDT, and we've offsetted like the volatility of our environment and created this local dollar economy through mining. Like, to me, that's incredibly awesome. Versus now, if you look at the proof of stake side, what's the entry? You have to buy it, right? If
yep,
you have to buy it, where are you going to buy it from? And if you're going to buy it from somewhere, what information or data do you now have to give in order to buy this asset versus just using power and hardware? So I personally, I think it was the worst thing that has happened in the crypto industry in terms of like the, I don't know, general mindset of things. But that's unpopular to say because people love armchair money. Now I can just stake it, I don't have to do anything, and I capture inflation.
while
For fuck's
causing
sake.
it. Yeah, I mean,
For fuck's sake. That's all. But anyway,
all right.
unpopular.
Let's see what else we have. Venture wants to know: did the Cardano girls give you your hat to wear? Are they talking about me or you? I imagine they're talking about me. Your hat's not a women's hat. My hat was like a 250 clearance special on Target. I have a stack of hats that I like to wear sometimes. So you're probably right, Venture Streams. This is probably a woman's hat, but don't give a fuck. If it fits my head, it's probably not a woman's hat. Maybe that's
Whenever I see this type of stuff pop up where somebody's doing something physical to support Ergo, I try to support them. Ship it to my brother's house.
You buy that online, Joe?
Yeah. Ship
Oh,
it to
nice.
my brother's house.
Oh, nice. Your brother's house. Your
That's
brother,
the
he'll get a wrench attack, not you.
Yeah, he's suited for it.
All right, let's see what else we have. And let me clarify too that I don't know enough about Ethereum smart contracts other than what I've been told of how complex they are and how much room that leaves for
Listen,
kind of things.
it's improved over time. It really has.
Yeah,
but you still have these things where they're using the wrong compiler or there's some sort of smart contract there and everything is just gone. So
yeah. My main issue, I'd say, is just the mindset of the people that I interact with that are very pro Ethereum, and
I went to East Denver, man. I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I like the Ethereum community. Anyway.
Well, I have an issue. I have a huge issue with like MBA bros, and a lot of the people that I meet in the space that are focused on that are essentially that. So that's where the sour taste in my mouth comes from.
There's a lot of people, not just in Ethereum, but the trend has been the CFI,
yeah,
CompliFi,
fucking hate it, Joe.
It's not really cryptocurrency. It's we're gonna create a tool. We're gonna scrape everybody's data. We're gonna make it super easy and fun.
Yep.
And it's not
Fucking
about resilience.
No,
but that's what it is anyway.
No, yeah, I think it's a maybe it's a youngest child thing, or maybe it's an ODD thing. Who knows about people saying something and you knowing that they're full of shit and they're saying something that's not really correct, and you just got to call them out on that. So I guess that's my main gripe with the people that I've experienced that are
man,
very
I couldn't live
pro-Ethereum.
if I had to call bullshit on everyone, I couldn't live on this
I
planet.
know it's tough. You just got to suck it up, I guess.
Yeah, is what it is.
All right, let's see who else we have. Lost Skate Shop says we are his two favorite Ergonauts aside from Simon. So I don't know if that's a high bar or a low bar there. Is that a compliment, Joe? I don't know.
I don't know. Simon's a unique character. He should when you have a decentralized community, you have no filters, right? So I don't know if Simon's even like just trolling us or if that's like his real personality. God help the world. But it is what it is. It's permissionless. Everybody's a peer. So you just have to love everybody who shows up and kind of scratch your head and say, I don't know what to think, but good luck. Have fun.
Should we jump over to the dev update, Joe?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm sure we got lots of shit to talk while we're going through this, so there's plenty of opportunity here. Let me switch to the two up here so we can see the dev update. Can you see the one I shared with you? All right. Let's see. I'll take this first one. So Mark's advertising in the dev update channel, the Ergo Hack 8 announcement. He's got a tweet there. There's a nice web page, ergohack.io. I tweeted about it earlier with a Bitcoin photo as well. But as you can see, Ergo is a smart layer, and Joe, you and I have talked about that earlier from people who are joining late quite a bit about providing those kind of financial tools and security that are, that makes sense. If I was a Bitcoin maxi and I looked at things and I'm like, okay, do I leave chain and go utilize my funds that I feel I secure with proof of work on Bitcoin over to an EVM chain or some other, hybrid of that? Or do I go to something like Ergo, which is proof of work? It has a lot of knowns, and the assumptions are fairly clear. I think the obvious choice would be Ergo in that case. But of course, I'm biased. But yeah, so that's what this is about. Check the tweet from our account earlier, from the Ergo platform account that I just put out maybe 3 hours ago, inviting everybody to come chat in the Ergo Hack Discord channel. To kind of have a little incubator to pop out ideas there, because you'd be surprised. I mean, you may think, okay, everybody joining the Ergo Hack already has an idea, but no, you guys start discussing these things in channel, and all of a sudden a dev will be like, oh fuck, that's really cool, I can build that, or let's get together and let's build this together, kind of thing. So it's never too late. Talk about these ideas, pop in channel, and if you're not a dev, it doesn't matter. Everybody has ideas, and it's not only the devs that can come up with those ideas.
All right, what's next?
It's all you with PGR 456.
All right.
Wait, is that an update?
I don't think so. I think he's asking a question.
He is asking. All right.
QX is next. I'm not going to read from that guy.
You got to read this guy. Come on. All right, I'll take this one. Fine. The Sigmanauts, approximately 2,700 in bonus tokens have been donated to the Sig mining pool. So these tokens are paid out randomly to a lucky miner 2 times a day. There are now actually 10 tokens, meaning there are 20 bonus payments to a random miner each day. And we did the math today. It's almost 10 ergs distributed extra per day to the mining pool. And there's about 40 people in the mining pool. There's about, I think we're up to like 88, almost 90 gigahash. So we should be finding about 3 to 4 blocks a day on that. Nice. So we're kicking ass, man. It's fantastic. So I wrote a bot that essentially gets every time it runs every hour for literally 20 hours straight. with a 4-hour break, it will just grab all the miner addresses and do a shuffle, put them into array, do a shuffle, and choose the first one and donate to it, and send a TX to donate one of the 10 tokens that we donated. It does that twice a day. So super cool, super fun. But somebody just said something today, and they were like, "Hey, what happens to people that are mining to a centralized exchange?" and I guess the answer was, well, looks like storage rent's gonna reclaim these tokens at some point, or somebody on the central exchange are consolidating and are gonna claim them. But we should probably have a warning on the token payout bonus that says, look, if you're mining to a central exchange, A, don't fucking do it. That's, B, this is why, kind of thing. So
I thought a lot of exchanges these days had some sort of minimum deposit to offset dust attacks.
oh, it could be. We've upped it to 0.5 though, half an erg in our pool, so it's not a lot for the smaller miners very often. All right, so Pi proposal posted on converting some treasury tokens to SIG-USD, our lending and duck pools, has actually passed. So the SIGs are going to start doing that. We're going to start using some tokens to convert to SIG-USD and then loan on deck pools and make some yield off that for the treasury. New Sigma proposal posted for Pi for Paul and Lycan, and they were actually promoted to Sigmanauts, actually. Let's see. Somebody telegrammed me. ACO voted in as a Sigmanaut as well on Pi. The mining pool bonus treasury spend has been approved. That was, I forget what that was. Oh, that's 100 erg. I take 100 erg from the treasury a month. I buy bonus tokens and I add them to that bonus pool that I just spoke about, 3 things up. So not only does it put a little buy pressure on projects that are like very Ergo focused, like we'll buy Bulber tokens that are very good at community organizing. We'll buy Greasy Sex, which, as everybody knows, is amazing at community organizing. We'll buy other tokens that show that they have an interest in promoting and socializing with Erg1, exactly that too. So that kind of thing. And it also pays out the bonus. So it's kind of like a win-win. Pi proposal to advertise on mining pool stats has passed. And I need to show everybody that. Let's see if we can see it here. I'm going to stretch my window for a sec. There we go. 8th place with 84 gigahash. Look at this pretty moving GIF that one of the Sigmanauts made for us. Pretty sexy, huh?
I can't see anything.
Or you can't see anything. Okay. I'm sure when you don't watch this video later, you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, on that.
Ongoing work, SIG security framework recommendation. I actually, that's on my list for tomorrow. And Ergo Vital DApps and services paper, which I just finished today and sent out to the SIG. So they're going to work on it as well. Essentially, that's identifying like first impression apps of somebody new to the ecosystem. They come in and say, okay, why isn't Sky Harbor working, or why is this clunky, or why is my TX paused, or that kind of thing. So we're identifying the pain points of new users, like first touch of the ecosystem, and seeing, can we help fund that? Can we help fund a dev to fix that pain point, or smooth it over, or make the UX a little better? So that's our idea there. And I discussed the Cornell blockchain event on the AMA that I was at. All right, got Canon Q for you, sir.
All right, looks like Cannon's working on the field. It's a peer-to-pool pledging protocol where individuals can pledge assets, coins, or tokens to support and participate in a competition. The project will be DAO-driven and open source. So the MVP smart contracts are complete. Testing is ongoing and using real data from games, matches, instead of dummy variables. Prior updates successful. Tested full flow of contracts for a single winning pledge. The DApp front-end UI integration has begun for the MVP. Crafting the pitch decks and FAQ to explain the project and mechanics to folks. So join their Discord to find out more and volunteer to move the project and DAO forward. Awesome.
All right, let's see. We have Louis Vatra. Oh, one of my favorite ergonauts. I just sent Louis Vatra a message so he could wake up to something nice. I said, Louis, whose D do I have to S to get the Sigma Knots mining
That's
DAO?
terrible.
I know.
That is terrible. Leave Louis Vuitton alone, QX. What are you doing?
I need the Sigs mining DAO set up so we can actually be a real DAO. So we'll see if I sweet talked him enough with those precious words.
It's gonna be two more weeks now. The poor guy's in therapy.
Well, after the Blitz launch, right? He's like done like 4 all-nighters and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, where are we? Louis Vuitton Blitz card sale launch. Launch went smoothly with more than 3,000 packs sold, meaning more than 15,000 cards distributed. System handled the busy first hours quite well, even though we had some issues with an invalid TX lingering in the node mempool. By using Crux Harmony, I shut down my node to clear the mempool and started up again without the Blitz pack losing node access. Once the mempool was cleared, any fulfillments that were dropped from the mempool automatically retired, so no problems there. Great job, Louis. It was a great launch. It worked really well, I think. Padilla, new auth system went live. Nothing visible for end user, but should give smoother UX around being logged in. Some can error out if you were logged in on the old system. If you get errors, try disconnect the app in the wallet and reconnect it. Of course, flush your cache too. That helps. Proposals can now have no action for proposals that have off-chain effects. Oh, nice. That is handy, because we have Sigma Knot votes that happen. No, we do send them a Sigma Knot token when the end, but there are votes, that happen off chain. Like you got to pay somebody, you got to do a multi-sig transaction that's not in the Pi treasury, but it's in our multi-sig wallet. So I usually end up just making a vote and sending myself like one B idea just because it's required. So that'll be nice. Proposals can now have multiple actions attached. That's really awesome. Stake tokens now correctly represent the DAO relevant token rather than the hard-coded Pi. Yeah, that was confusing for people staking their Sigma Knots token. It was like, stake your Pi token, and you're like, what? I don't have a Pi token. This is interesting too. People need to pay attention to these goddamn proposals if there's multiple actions attached to the end. You read the first action, you're like, oh yeah, I agree with that, and you miss the part where you're sending 500 ERG to this person's wallet kind of thing. All right, you got Kushti, sir.
All right, we got Alex with the Ergo protocol reference client research and development. He's done a PR on a new proof of work check method for header type. Made a new 6.0 related issue. Made a PR with big int Ergo script constructor. It's now merged. Looks like updated EIP 50 with new issues and PRs. New extra indexer related issues discovered. He's going to work on it. It looks like he reviewed and merged 2101. Reviewed Sigma Rust issue with DUSEC on the next steps for Sigma Rust development. With Dexy, looks like made a round of review for the contract, now deploying its instance on the mainnet. And he's going to write up a forum post. We're looking for update key holders. So that's something that actually I talked to him about yesterday, I think, where he's hoping to distribute a set of keys around the ecosystem to people that are active, whether it's Oracle providers, Sigma Knots, small time developers even. It'd be great to have people contribute. With Sigma USD, has updated the key holders to Louis Vuitton, and Unreal, Anon 2020S, MG Pi, and Kushti. And looks like Dark Side of Burr is going to send the keys in 1 to 2 days. So it's nice to see. With Chain Cache, another abstract is done and will be published in the coming days. Looking into what's to do on top of the, looks like Chain Cache 43 to get basic persistence and then transaction builds. And it looks like he has 2 other issues that he's working through. With the Ergo Devs DAO, Telegram group is established, collecting public keys for multi-sig. After that, there's going to be basic principles and DAO management rules. That's something that I'm actually going to throw all the money that I made at the EF back into the Dev DAO. So I
holy cow. That's
0.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait.
All right.
You're throwing 0 in, or you're saying
no.
you'll net
Like,
0?
No, I'm
Yeah.
gonna give back all the. I just kept it, and I'm
Holy
gonna.
shit.
Yeah, it's
After
open source
like
code.
3 years of EF donation payments? Jesus, Joe. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Eh. I like open source code anyway. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. I get wrapped up in that stuff sometimes. At one point I wrote a message on the SIGs and asked them for advice. I said, I feel not a disconnect. What's the word? Cognitive dissonance here, where I'm pushing for open source and pushing to build and pushing to adopt. And yet I also have a bag of Erg or a bag of Rosen or whatever that I'm hoping to gain yield on at some point. So I had a hard
Mhm.
time. I had a hard time for a bit separating that and not thinking of that all the time and thinking to myself, look, if I really believe in the ideals of Ergo and what it stands for and what I want to do with it and what I want it to do to the world, then I shouldn't hold any of it. I should have
I
nothing
just want to
on it.
create value. That's my goal.
Yeah. So it was,
Like I for me, I sit back with my tinfoil hat, and I imagine 20 years in the future, if the cryptocurrency industry fails, we are fucked. We are so fucked.
that's scary.
We are so fucked, QX. So like I know there's a lot of people chasing the animal with the hat and whatever, but I just look at it in terms of like privacy and some notion of having the ability to have control and custody over your money, and like that future scares the shit out of me. I don't want to have kids coming into that world, so you got to do what you can to prevent it.
Yeah.
Just the truth.
Yep. All right, let's see what do we have next. We've got C8 with on-chain limit order exchange. Standard evaluation of an Ergo hack idea. On-chain order-based exchange. To make the idea more challenging, the goal is to have a real-time order execution via a shadow mempool. Shadow mempool enables real-time trading while mandating user signature approval for each action. This means that the user is at any time in control of its L1 funds, unlike in traditional L2 solutions, where a user deposits to a foreign multi-sig address. At the core of it, there is a time-limited user-controlled multi-sig script, which is if the temporary unlock height is less than or equal to the height, then allow the user PK to sign, else user PK and the shadow mempool PK have to sign. This puts user funds into temporary shadow mempool cosign address. During the lock time, both the user and shadow mempool have to approve actions. After lock time, the funds are back in the user's control. This guarantees that the worst case scenario is a temporary hodl. Some more technical write-up will follow after a successful evaluation. Interesting. So far, successfully tested a simple Alice and Bob multi-sig in TypeScript, thanks to Kushti for the gist and Vorjak for Minotaur implementation. Super cool. Already seeing a Ergo hack idea coming forth.
All right, looks like next we have PG 456. Small update. Sigma Russ, he's been working on some missing types and function for the C bindings. Currently missing extended public key, derivation path, and some methods for X secret key. Also might add serials or string serialization and deserialization for reduced transactions, which is also missing in the bindings. With sigmaspace.io, still working on some display bugs as soon as we'll also add token price and token overview page. So nice.
All right. We've also got Blitz TCG right here. Blitz launch was very successful, and folks are continuing to engage with our characters and project. The pack token and card token launch was buttery smooth, in a large part thanks to Marty and his Ergo Pad team, which included Louis Vatra. Bless his little heart. The secondary market has also been pretty crazy. We caused an uptick in the average transaction count on Ergo on launch day. Next up is releasing the burn contract that LGD is working on so users can burn extra cards and get some Blitz tokens in return. After a certain number of cards are burned, the rewards of Blitz tokens per card burned will be halved. Oof, very much like how a full blockchain's halving event works. We call it proof of burn because it sounds cool. Thank you again, and please look forward to many more updates this year. This is so cool that we see so many ways of token value being adopted in Ergo. You know, you have auction coin where the community can organically set the price of a token based on that demand and what they wish it to be. And you have this where tokens aren't minted until, or aren't released from the contract until you burn an NFT. So it's you're making rare one thing. So if you burn a bunch of Margos, you're gonna up the rarity of the Margos that exist in real time, and at the same time you're introducing tokens into the ecosystem. So you're potentially inflating the value there, which it's going to be an interesting mechanic to see. Very cool.
Let's see.
Yeah.
What do we got next? Pulsars.
That's all you, sir.
Oh, he rugged me today. I was trying to get people like
What do you do?
Post music. I was trying to get people to post music in Baseless just because it's like depression festival in there sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, what's the vibe? Let's listen to some music. It's the weekend. They just posted like complete. Oh,
Like
anyway.
John Denver. What do you post?
No, don't even look. It's
Okay.
worth. I can imagine. Anyway, so with the Ergo monitor, it looks like added block scanning in addition to the existing mempool scanning to make sure it never misses any transactions. So at least he didn't rug us in terms of the dev update, just in terms of my vibe on a Sunday.
All right, we've got Rosen. Why don't you do Rosen, Joe? That's part
Sure.
of your team.
Sure. So with Rosenbridge, we've got an update in terms of Rosen chains, implementing the sign transaction in the EVM chain. Actually, tomorrow we're going to actually put together our first 3 milestones for the EVM integration. There's been a lot happening in the background that we're kind of pushing towards. We did get a Catalyst grant, so we should be able to actually knock off 3 milestones based on our current development pace. Which is nice because we're undergoing an audit, and yeah, that's fun. Anyway, with Bitcoin runes, we're working in different solutions to support Bitcoin runestones in the Rosen bridge. Currently at the stage of design and checking the compatibility with our bridge mechanism. That's what I was talking about earlier. With Rosen clients, fix a bug in the constructor or proto in the metadata. Looks like with the Rosenbridge guard service, update Swagger UI to the latest, update the Axios to the latest. With the Rosenbridge RoseNet, which is kind of the guard P2P layer. So it's underneath like the guard set itself. Identified external IP and announced it to other nodes. Update spec based on recent RoseNet design changes. So we're kind of improving RoseNet itself, and we're hoping that we build a peer-to-peer network of over 100 guards long term as kind of our like net goal, where they may actually interact differently based on different chains, but kind of get a really large distributed set of actors there.
Awesome. Are you hunting already for guards in Ethereum and Bitcoin ecosystem?
No, let's see. I've my personal opinion. Again, I'm not in charge of that, which is kind of interesting. But my personal opinion is that it should be collateral based, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to be an entity that's going to provide liquidity into multiple environments, I should have some sort of representation in terms of the consensus action. And I can say that, like, as a project Ergo, if I get listed on an exchange, I'm giving them a bunch of liquidity, but I have nothing in terms of actual like oversight or consensus action in whatever their back end is. So I think that's actually really attractive, especially if we try to outcompete on the cost side, where we say, okay, we have collateral requirements rather than listing fees, right? That way it's not lost money. It's simply you're investing in basically building liquidity in other ecosystems.
Alrighty. Let's see, what else do we have? Is that it? Maverick's got an update. Maverick is the one who built the SIG banner that you can see here. Successfully holding weekly puzzle treasure hunt events for Bober. People are happy and engaged by them. I've done both of them. I was unsuccessful on I won the first one, but was unsuccessful on the second one. It's fairly difficult by the way I was looking at it. At least I got about 3/4 of the words and couldn't get the last 3 or 4 words. Crafted multiple banners to be used for the SIG's mining pool and mining pool stats and also mining dashboards. So there's this banner, and I showed it to you earlier on that site right there. All right. Oh, here we go. Neural Yogi for you. That's Mark the Shark.
Mark the Shark with the Sigma DAO pool. Looks like he's successfully integrated database in the dashboard. Where currently we'll pull main core API parse data as needed for the UI and store it into a Postgres table. Looks like next is to containerize database and connect with your Docker container, which will run a cron job and periodically update tables. Taking longer than expected, but should be able to complete by the end of the week if it all goes well. Shout out to Maverick for the dope banners. We will add that to the pool, and so check out the image. Requested a block found banner, so when we find a block, the banner will pop up on the front and the mining page. Working on payment and participation over a time plot for the mining page, so users can track the data over time. Got some ideas or want to help with this dash? Hit up the Sigma Knot Mining on Telegram group. And if you want to participate, hit them up as well. Setting new records in terms of hash rate and miners week by week. So join them for the fun and the rewards. I think that's awesome to see.
Yeah, super super cool. And we're on Discord as well. It's linked to the Ergo Discord if you scroll down for Sig mining. Yeah, Mark's been cranking it out. Amazing.
Looks like Josume's got one too.
Yeah, short one. For the reputation system, now working on UI improvements for a first basic version.
It's an Ergo hack project. Nice one.
Awesome. You got Kukaran for Erg1.
All right, with Erg1, looks like new daily snapshot launched this morning. The aim is to change the way users are submitting links and votes. From now on, users will have a certain amount of links and votes per week instead of per month. Every Monday, they'll get their links and votes for the upcoming week, depending on the amount of Erg1 they own. It was done for users to have some voting power to use at the end of the month. Then all events will have the same user commitment, and so the rewards were sent minutes ago, at least when this was posted.
And there's an update. Well, let's see what else is here if we missed anything. Looks like that is it for the day of 5/1. Yeah, we're on 5/2 already.
Yeah.
So there's an update that's being missed, and I pinged Mr. Pixel, but he's extremely busy. Cyberverse, one of the Cyberverse developers, they did a big update recently, really big one. They changed some stuff around. They did some tweaks with the rewards system for holding NFTs characters for those rewards as well as other payouts. They changed their chat system. They added some sketchy dealers, Joe. so you can find these sketchy dealers kind of walking around town in different places, and they only stay there for a short amount of time. And you can go there and you can sell some of the like basic things that you can get from dumpsters or from fishing or that kind of thing. You can sell it to them, anything that's sellable like that, and they'll take a 25% cut. So it's like a 25% discount that they buy it for. And there's like a 5 to 10% chance that they rug you on the stuff you're trying to sell them. So they'll steal. I know, it's really cool. So it gives you that opportunity to still make stuff off your basic items that you would have tried to sell on Marketplace, I guess, for a discount on the sketchy dealers part as well. But there are several.
I saw they had a Twitter space today. I was driving and I wasn't king of the radio, so I couldn't tune in. But
No, I tuned in. Sis, Kilver, and was it King? No, somebody else ran it, and it was good. It was good. They talked about all those updates and how the community can be more organized and work together there. So yeah, it was a good update. Good spaces. good attendance too. So nice job on Sis, and he runs them every week too. So he'll run them he'll run them next week at the same time. Yep. What else we got there? Any talk in chat while we were gone? Let's see. Nope. People were talking about some drama with Charles Hodgkinson's tweet earlier today. Oh, pretending you don't know, Joe. Let's see. Let me see. Let me bring it up real quick. He said, "Oh God, he's so prolific of a tweet, I can't even get to it." Oh, well, there's a couple. He's Here, let me bring him up. I'll share again. No, I can't share that. Nope, it's not going to let me show it. He said that hypothetical poll, would you like to see Bitcoin Cash become a Cardano partner chain, upgraded with useful proof of work, NIPA and Ergo tech, thus being the fastest and most useful proof of work chain ever built? Dun, 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 dun. It's got to have the sound effect there.
Yeah. Well, listen, my first recommendation to everybody out there is if someone says hypothetical question, don't lose your shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, in terms of NEPO pals, I would love to see other proof of work chains support NEPO pals, because we could actually do some unique cross-chain communication stuff with using NEPO pals. Proof of useful work is, there's been a lot of research. There's some interesting stuff, right? But sometimes crypto's a sex machine, right? Where it's like, it's new, it's sexy, it's hyped, whatever. I think that time shows strong designs, right? So it's functionally a little bit insane to be like, hey, let's rug your entire consensus mechanism, plug in something that's new, that's untested. I'm conservative. Put it in a side chain, put it in a playground, develop it, and then let's let time decide whether it's worthy of like withstanding resistance, right? So if I just look at it from that principle, if I were like Bitcoin Cash is running off of the Bitcoin algorithm, right? SHA-256, different difficulty adjustment, etc. But there's some crossover with miners where they can kind of hop back and forth, and that's kind of Bitcoin Cash's shtick in terms of security. So unless you're going to build proof of useful work that supports SHA-256, I don't see how miners are going to support it, because you'd be rugging them. Like, it's just common sense. No. And in terms of like having that, the Sigma chains would be a nice avenue to experiment with potential proof of useful work experiments, etc. But let's not forget that time shows strong designs. You cannot cheat that in life. You just can't. So
yeah, agreed. Yeah, one thing I learned in the newsprint business, at least earlier in my life, is that if a headline asks a question, the answer is no. It's always
I just think
no.
it's funny that anyway, I like Charles. He's a smart guy. He's interesting to talk to. But if somebody says the first word is hypothetical, and then people get dramatic, like, oh, I'm really glad I'm not him. I'll just say that. Like, how could you frame it any different? Hypothetical question, and everyone's like, oh my god.
Well, the other post he did a few minutes before that or after that was, should I do an X space with Snick, the Ape Society, and Hosky? So Charles is really diving in and embracing this.
Yeah, the Twitter spaces are a decent medium. Anyway, I don't really like to do them so much, but I show up when I'm summoned, right? So if people really want to push me into one, I'll go. But sometimes it's nice to engage with the community and get questions, feedback, learn where people's heads are at.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to chat about, Joe? Your guests must have left. Your guests upstairs must have left already.
Hypothetically, no. I'm done.
It's
I showed
about.
up early today for you, QX.
You did.
You
I
sleep.
appreciate it. It's 12:56 a.m. right now instead of
Yeah, it said it.
1:56 a.m.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I really appreciate it. That'll do good for my COVID. Thank you. I get to work from bed tomorrow, so it's fine either way. All right.
All right. Well, how many viewers did we get up to this time?
Oh, we got almost 20, I think. Not
Wow.
bad for these
Hitting the
impromptu things.
moon.
I know, right? Right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. What do we have coming up this week? We've got the dev update in chat on Wednesday. We've got the AMA on Thursday. We've got Sigmanaut meetings on Sundays. If you're a SigCan or a Sigmanaut, please join. We've got a lot of stuff. We got Vegas coming up, baby, at the Caesar's Palace. That's dangerous. We should, I'm going to put up a Badia vote to cash out 20,000 ergs and put it all on red.
Good luck.
Let's see how that does.
All I can say is good luck.
All right, guys. Joe, you take it away. You sign off. Ciao, everybody.